But Garrett's friend of mine from this entrepreneur group, Mastermind Talks, which is a bunch of really great entrepreneurs and people in the health space and authors and stuff.
I met you in the early Amazon days, man.
Yeah, and I remember your book Killing Sacred Cows was you were in Las Vegas giving a talk on Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon stuff, where basically like people could be entrepreneurs. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Entrepreneurs could sell products on Amazon without having to keep the inventory in their own warehouse or whatever. You basically use Amazon as your warehouse.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was working on a coffee brand, and I saw you speak, and I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. He's got nice long hair. I'm gonna check out his book. And I read the book afterwards, and I loved it. And I think it was around the same time that I went through Money Master the Game, or maybe it was a bit around. You know, I ended up going through them both at the same time, and I loved your book because it kind of gives the average everyday person plus entrepreneurs a viewpoint of the same type of things that was in Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins, but you came at it from a perspective of, you know, don't rely on the stock market and the government, rely on yourself. You have the ability to like create value, and you gave a bunch of really good tips for people to kind of like take control of their own financial life without having to rely on a financial advisor or something like that. So they were both really good, like, books for people. I recommend people read both of them, but yours I thought spoke more to like the entrepreneurship side of things and the contrarian, like, you know, this is, you got to be aware of how the stock market works and all that, but you know, it's pretty much a scam. That's what I took from it.
Yeah, I mean, here's my feeling on the stock market. All right. So doing research last year, I discovered that 84% of the gain of the stock market is held with 10% of the investors. So when they say the stock market's done 6%, which is the reality, but they might say 8% or something like that, or 10% for the people stuck in the 90s. You know, when they say that, they're looking at the overall return of the market, but what they're not slicing up here is if that's what the market did overall, that doesn't mean the average investor did that. So let's just look at a hedge fund, for example. All right. So some of the biggest hedge funds, like there were hedge funds that did 30% for a decade. So that's insane, right? Not a lot of them, very few. A lot of hedge funds actually lose money, but some of the biggest ones do pretty well for long periods of time. And so if the market did 6%, but a major hedge fund that's got billions upon billions upon billions of dollars did 30%, well, the reality is they're using derivatives, they're using options, they're using margin, they're using things that the average investor isn't. And so when we look at what happened, you know, in the COVID-19 worst quarter we've seen in the stock market at the time this is going on since 2008. It's the worst quarter since 2008. The reality is that money didn't evaporate, Brad. That money didn't go away. When it spoke as being lost, it's just been transferred. And when we look at major hedge funds sell massive positions or short stocks, essentially people that are just in it for the long haul, people that are just putting their money in their retirement plans, fed those major, you know, players. That money just transferred. I want to be really clear about that. It did not go away. It transferred into someone else's hands. And if you don't understand that, you're not investing, you're gambling, you're speculating. And I think far too many people have been lulled to sleep by just put your money in these funds and it's all going to work out. The other reason it doesn't work out, and where people are going to see much more negative returns to come that they haven't accounted for, is let's say that you're in the S&P 500. And let's say one of those 500 businesses doesn't make it through this economy, through this recession that we're facing. Well, that company is now done and gone. But all they do is replace that with another company, right, that did make it. Maybe an up-and-comer, or a company was a little bit smaller and it was the 501 instead of the 500 companies. Now that gets moved in there and it shows up as the new return. But the reality is all the money I had to date when that company went out, some went to zero. That company is gone. And when they replace it, I don't get the returns of the new company on my old money. So that exaggerates what people believe the return to be, because it's not zeroed out, because it's just a temporary snapshot. And then the next month they act like nothing happened. So, you know, there's a lot of transferring of wealth. We're going to see the biggest transfer of wealth that we've ever seen in history during this time. It's going to be the largest one we've ever seen, and it's going to have a massive impact. So I could probably tell you 100 more things about the stock market, but I'm not here just to beat up on what's wrong. I'm here to definitely illuminate and illustrate that there's a problem here, because I think there's even bigger issues with the stock market that need to be addressed, including fiduciary responsibility, because it's only to the shareholder, not to customers and not to employees. And so if we are going to have regulation, which I'm not a huge fan of regulation, we should have fair regulation, not something that's lopsided that continues to suck money away from the masses and put them in the hands of very few people.